Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Stranger Things Season 2, and I really enjoyed this season. I got into Stranger Things when we kind of first got Netflix, and I was really excited to see what they were going to do with this next season, because they do a very good job of nailing down the kind of 80s time period and just kind of like working within what they're trying to do. They do a good job of like pacing, execution, and like character development. So you've got the overall arc of like the 80s era. You've got the all kind of like monsters that they kind of bring into what kind of scenarios they're going on with. And they like develop their characters in kind of interesting ways. So of course, we know that the first season dealt with the disappearance of Will and getting him back from the Upside Down, and we got the tease at the end of him spitting up a kind of slug. So, of course, we get into this season, and the two kind of main focuses on this season are Will and Eleven, and I think they did a good job of picking those two and really showing their arcs through this season and like connecting everybody else up with that arc. Because in the first season, Mike was kind of like the main kind of focus, whereas Will was kind of the object to try and find and help and save, and also kind of putting that tangentially with Eleven and her escape. So, of course, we see the guys kind of like trying to get back to normal. We see kids at school calling Will Zombie Boy, and we see a new character introduced to the school, Max, being like, why is he called Zombie Boy? And having like Lucas kind of explain that they had a funeral for him, and it was another kid, but he came back, and it's like, geez. And seeing Max's kind of like outsider's perspective was kind of cool. Now, granted, do some of the other characters kind of go to the wayside? Yes, but I still think they do a good enough job of kind of like bringing them forward, because it's interesting to see Max's reaction as kind of like almost an outsider audience member perspective on what happened last season, what's going on now. So, of course, Will's pretty much the primary focus because he's still dealing with the effects of the Upside Down, like going to an arcade and suddenly having a vision that he's in the Upside Down and seeing this kind of storm in the sky, and then Mike comes and says, hey, you okay? Because we've now seen that in this arcade, somebody with the name of Mad Max has like dealt all of their high scores out. It's like, shit, how do we get this back? And of course, they're trying to figure out what's going on. And of course, when Max is introduced to school, it's like, that's Mad Max. And of course, seeing the boys trying to kind of like get intel on her and all of that, and her dropping like a note in the trash saying, stop stalking me, you creeps. It's like, oh, shit. And of course, they're kind of like going through, Will, they dress up for Halloween as the Ghostbusters. That was kind of funny to see them arguing who would be, which character. Nobody wanted to be Winston. Lucas was calling all the time like, hey, you want me to just be Winston because I'm black? He's like, he's lame. He comes in the group last. He's not a scientist. He doesn't really do much. It's like, damn, he's being hard on Winston, but it's like, you want to be like one of the like smart ones or whatnot. And it's like, well, Winston was smart. He was the straight man in it, because all the rest of them were kind of like crazy and bouncing off their stuff. But it's like, he's just the everyman dealing with like, oh Jesus, ghosts and shit. And it was just like cool seeing them kind of nerd out about that with their costumes. And it was like, oh, cool. And of course they come in, they're dressed up, but nobody else is. And it's like, oh shit. So of course we keep going on. They go out trick-or-treating, and here's one of the things that kind of like got me, because Jonathan was supposed to take him trick-or-treating. Now granted, Will kind of confides to him that he wishes people would just kind of like let him be a little bit more. Now granted, I understand that his mom would never want to let him go again, considering what happened to him. But granted, he does need to be let off to kind of like be himself. And seeing Jonathan let him do that and carry around the recorder that Bob, Joyce's new boyfriend, was letting him do. The only thing that kind of rubbed me with that was Jonathan was supposed to be watching Will trick-or-treating. But later on, when they're like looking over the tape and everything, they never comment on it. That's the only kind of like plot hole that I had in here, but it didn't really have any negative impact on my viewing of the show. So of course, they're going trick-or-treating. Dustin and Lucas were pretty much trying to vie for Max's affection and all that, but they weren't doing it in a fuck you kind of way to each other. It was more like to see who could, well, not who would win or who she would pick, but just like who could, like, it's kind of hard to explain because it's not like they were trying to compete with each other, like hardcore, but they were still trying to compete to see who she would kind of pick. And seeing her kind of scare them with a Mike Myers mask and everything as they're like going around trying to find full-size candy bars was kind of cool. And then, of course, Will is like confronted by older kids calling him Zombie Boy and everything. He drops the camera and he gets into the Upside Down again. But this time he sees this kind of crazy shadow monster kind of thing. Very Lovecraftian, very Cthulhu-like. And it's just like crazy kind of like elder god kind of monster thing. It's like he's running away and he's able to kind of like get away from it long enough that he gets back to reality. Well, we believe he gets back to reality. And Mike's like, I'm just going to take him home. He's pissed off that the other guys are trying to like bring Max in the group because he kind of sees it as replacing 11. We see Mike going throughout his little arc in the season, like his parents taking away his Atari, making him donate more toys, but you can see that he is mad and upset about not being able to have 11 be in their group and having her gone from the end of last season because she had like destroyed the Demogorgon but disappeared. So he sees himself, we see him trying to call her, and we hear 11 saying Mike and all that. I'm like, holy crap. So the parents never pick up on that and don't really talk to him about it. But granted, he doesn't talk to them about it either. But he's trying to deal with his feelings for 11. As we see parallel 11, we see her that she had gotten out of the Upside Down through a portal, and that Hopper has like put her out in the woods to kind of like keep her safe, and that she tries to visit him. She's gotten powerful enough that she doesn't need a sensory deprivation tank. She just puts on a blindfold, puts on white noise, and is able to like use her mind to locate people. And seeing her trying to talk with Mike and see that she's got feelings for him and really misses him, talking about like how long she's been out there, and Hopper just wanting to try and protect her. And because he's pretty much kind of views her as another daughter, and he's just afraid that the government will take her from him and all that. It's like, I understand that, and seeing them having their conflicts with that was very well done. So we then see the main kind of thing that starts going on. We see the pumpkin patches, and at first we're like, what's going on with this? It has to be connected to the Upside Down. And of course he gets the people from the lab. We got new people in charge. We got this Dr. Owens, who's Paul Reiser, we've seen in the movie Aliens and all that. It's like, oh, he does a good job because Hopper goes with Joyce during Will's kind of things to go in there. They're looking at him to make sure he's okay. He's talking to him about his visions in the Upside Down and all that. It's like, okay, you need to go check these out as well because they get further on and more pumpkin patches are getting infected with this thing. And he's like, what the hell's going on with this? And it's like, holy crap. While this is going on, Dustin eventually finds this little creature and starts taking care of it because he wants it to be his friend. He calls it D'Artagnan because after trick-or-treating, he starts feeding it Three Musketeers. And, of course, he kind of shows it to the guys. He's like, what? I found it. And he's like talking about like all the stuff that he went through to try and find out what it is. And of course, Will connects it with the thing that he coughed up. He's like, I think that's from the Upside Down. I'm like, listen, we got to do something. And he says this to Mike. And of course, Dustin was about to show it off to a teacher. And Mike's like, we got to kill this thing. And of course, it like escapes and is starting to kind of like, not mutate, but grow very rapidly. It gets legs, it escapes. Max is kind of pissed off because while this is going on, nobody's let her in or told her what's going on with Will and all that. Of course, this starts kind of amping up and ramping up because as Will finds D'Artagnan, Dart, and tells everybody where he's at, he goes back to the Upside Down and he's trying to run from it. But at this point, he takes another tactic because Bob's like, tried to help him and say he got afraid of a clown, and with all the nightmares, he told him to go away. He stood his ground. Well, bad thing to do for Will in this case, because he does that, and the Shadow Monster takes him over, or completes its infection of him, because a really cool thing that they've done in this is because we start seeing more of like the physical infection because Will was in the Upside Down the longest and had a freaking tube shoved down his throat and coughed up a fucking slug when he came back. He's got that biological propensity down. This is more of like the mind taking over more and completing the kind of infection from the Upside Down. And, of course, Dustin gets Dart and kind of takes it back, still trying to think that it's going to be an okay kind of thing. And they find Will out there. Joyce comes to see what's going on because she's afraid for Will. And they see him just kind of convulsing in the field. Then he kind of comes back. They kind of take him back to the house. And he then gets to being very cold. Joyce takes his temperature. And he's really below normal. And she draws up a hot bath for him, and instead of going into it, he's like, it's too hot. He's like, he likes it cold. And the way the actor who plays Will is able to snap between Will and this kind of like otherworldly kind of like, he likes it cold. It's like, shit, okay. So of course Joyce opens up everything, and he's like, confused. He's like, it's making now memories in my mind. It's happening now. It's like, can you explain it to us? Because Hopper comes like, what's going on? And of course, he's not able to explain it, but he's able to draw it. He draws all these tunnels. He's like, it looks like mines. So Hopper goes and digs into the pumpkin patch and finds tunnels very similar to the Upside Down. And it's like, holy shit, the infection's going on, because we see that the people in the lab think that they've got the infection of the open, you could call it a portal, but to be honest with you, what Eleven did with her mind was essentially ripping a hole and allowing the infection to go through. That's getting into space and time kind of quantum mechanics that you're like, listen, now granted, they made it a little bit more simple because you see that the infection has spread vastly down and created tunnels and networks and everything. And Dart is not the only thing that's around there. So, Hopper gets trapped down there, and I really like how they did that. And he's like screwed over because he gets like blasted by one of the things down there and is like passed out. And you would think that the scientists would think more about this, because the way this is going, it's more like, here's our reality as a bubble, and here's the Upside Down as a bubble. There is a rip, because there can be natural holes like a wormhole. This is a rip that allows this infection to come through, because that's like a necrotic, diseased realm, and now it's trying to come over and take over ours. And you can see that going through the tunnels and all the kind of things going on. It's like, holy shit. Because when we get into it later, we see that they thought they were controlling Burns. The gate has greatly expanded itself. I would have thought it would have been interesting if they had done that. This had like screwed with space and time, and that other portals or whatnot would be popping up more frequently around the world. And it's like, holy shit, this is some big shit going on. I really liked how they did that and did this stuff with what's going on with this infection. So, of course, Will kind of helps them kind of figure out where Hopper is, because he had a vision of him in the tunnel, and it's like, oh shit, we gotta get to him before he dies. So, of course, Bob kind of helps him out, and they get down there, and they're able to get him, and the soldiers are, because they figured out what was going on. They saw that the dirt samples, while not infected visibly, reacted to heat exponentially. And, of course, while they were burning this stuff, Will starts freaking the fuck out and convulsing because he's connected to it now. Hive mind kind of thing. So while this was going on, we also get into the fact that, of course, Dart has now mutated to the point that it has turned into a demigorgon, demidog kind of thing, and ate Dustin's cat. It's like, yeah, you should have watched out for that. But, of course, you think, oh, he kind of fucked shit up, so there's going to be bad repercussions. Well, there are kind of bad repercussions with the cat and everything. He has to pretty much get the demidog thing down into the basement and pretty much has to call on Steve to help him. Which, by the way, Steve has the most interesting arc, because he starts off the popular kid and you thought he'd be the asshole, but he comes in and kind of like becomes the kind of babysitter, kind of like a pal and kind of a bigger, older brother to Dustin, helping him out, and like, alright, fine, I'll help you, because, of course, Dart escaped, tunneling out from the whole basement thing. It's like, holy shit. So, this is where stuff starts to kind of intersect. We have seen Lucas has filled in Max on everything, trying to make up for it. So we've got two people who disobeyed party rules. Dustin lying about Dart, and Lucas filling in Max when not everybody democratically approved of it. So they start hooking up because Dustin's like, I need your help tracking down Dart. And of course we see them kind of like going off. We see, of course, it's just Steve and Dustin at first, and then they hook up with Lucas and Max, and they try and make this kind of trap to trap Dart. But it turns out that there are like giant packs of Demodogs, and Steve almost gets like fucked over as they like pull him back into the bus. And there's like this big one, but they're called away. And of course, that's because it leads to the whole stuff with the laboratory. It's like, oh shit, something's going on. We're being kind of attacked. While this is going on, we see Nancy and Jonathan have put a plan together to expose what was going on at the lab, because Nancy was having troubles with Steve and wanted to tell Barb's parents about Barb's death because they were planning on using an investigator to try and find Barbara, selling their house and all that. And Steve's like, no. And of course, she gets drunk at a party and says everything's bullshit, even them being together. So of course, they've broken up at this point, as all the Demodogs and everything's going on. So her and Jonathan pretty much set up a plan that they got a tape recorder and pretty much had Owens confess to everything. And they're like, all right, what do we do with this? They pretty much go to the investigator conspiracy guy, and he's like trying to think of what to do, and they're like, oh, we just water down the story, that works out. And they start making all these tapes and send them all to the places. They, instead of going with the whole Demogorgon, alternate dimensions, all that kind of shit, they said chemical leak at the lab, killed Barbara, and affected Will. It's like, okay, that works out a little bit better. It's a little bit more digestible for the people. So, of course, they're finished up with that, and they start hooking back up. I see Will and them are kind of at the lab and all that. Mike there as well. We see Will kind of get back up and running, and he's had some memory issues. And they're trying to find like the central node to kind of like burn out what's going on in the tunnels. And he pretty much initiates a trap for him, kind of similar to aliens. And they go down in there, and they get attacked by all the Demodogs, and they come up through the hole that they have kind of dug to see how big the gate is, and they pretty much take out the whole of the laboratory, except for Owens, Hopper, Mike, Joyce, and Will, and they've sedated Will at this point because he's pretty much become a spy for the Shadow Monster, the overall mind collective of this, like, upside down. It's like, holy shit. And Bob's there as well. So, while they're doing all their stuff inside the lab, we see that, like, Jonathan and Nancy have come pretty much to the gate. We've seen Max and the rest hook up with them, trying to figure out what's going on with the lab and trying to get in. And while this is going on, Billy, Max's older brother, is also then attempting to find her, because he was supposed to watch out for him. His dad beats on him, as we see his whole negative kind of outlook, because Billy's kind of a dick, but we understand towards the end of the series why he's such a dick, because his dad physically abuses him and verbally berates him, and he kind of takes that out on his stepsister, Max. They moved from California all the way to Hawkins, and it's like, yeah, it makes Billy a more sympathetic character, but it's not. I wish it was done a little bit more throughout the series, unless they're going to be doing like something with him in like season 3, but at least gave him more dimension as a character at that point. So we get to the people inside the lab. Bob pretty much has to go down and use BASIC to put everything back up so that everybody can get out the front doors, and he's able to do so, and we get this cool chase scene while he's running away from the Demodogs, and unfortunately he doesn't make it out. I really like what they did with this character, because they did a nice arc of him being kind of Bob the Brain kind of character, and then he does something heroic that helps save the people, and he kind of has to go, he goes out and stops. Of course, Hopper tries to save him, but there's too many of them and they have to get out and figure out what to do. They're like, okay. They go back to the Byers residence and they're like, we gotta figure out how to kill this thing. Will's the only one who can know that. So they pretty much make a room where he can't figure out where he's at and pretty much try and grill him. But to no avail until they see that he's tapping out Morse code and he taps out, close the gate. But of course the phone rings and that pretty much lets him know that he's at the Byers residence. And then of course like, oh shit, the Demodogs are going to be coming for us. Shit! And that's kind of where it's wrapped up at the end, just like at that one point. That's where almost everything converges, because separately we've seen 11 kind of dealing with her things. She's kind of lashing out, being confined to this cabin. She tries to find Mike earlier in the season, goes out to the school, sees him with Max, and uses her powers to make Max fall off the board, and kind of upset about that, which leads her to have a fight with Hopper because she made the stupid mistake of going out. And of course, she's trying to clean up everything, and she finds her mother's files and everything. And she goes to find her mother. She does, and is able to communicate with her, and she gets the whole lowdown of what happened to her mother, that her mother, she was taken from her mother at birth, and that when her mother tried to find her and everything, and did find her with this other girl, 8, who we'd seen at the beginning of the season doing something that we don't know until 11 pops up with her. And she was pretty much shock therapy to insanity, and she even kind of has powers similar to 11 because she was able to kind of like flicker the lights and everything. And 11 gets from her to try and find 8. So she's able to locate her, and of course the other kind of thing that was kind of not clearly wrapped up was 11's aunt. She like said that she could live with her and all that stuff, but of course she's calling to get in contact with Hopper and Joyce, so 11 goes off on her own to find 8, and they talk about everything. We find out that 8 has the ability to affect perception of reality, not telekinesis like 11. And of course, 8 pretty much, instead of really trying to be like sisters with her, is trying to use her to find Hawking's laboratory people and kill them. And they go out on this one thing, and 11 almost does it, but they see that this guy has daughters, and 11 stops him from doing it, and 8's like, you don't do that. You don't take my revenge from me. You can show mercy, but you don't take that from me. And of course, after this, she has a very kind of Luke moment and is able to see that her friends are in trouble, going back to where everybody's kind of like preparing for the Demodog attack, because they've all kind of like talked up about everything, about the Mind Flayer and the Shadow Monster and everything, and they're trying to figure out what to do and like prepare themselves for the attack that's about to come. And that's of course when 11 shows up and throws a dog in, a Demodog in that she's killed, and comes in and has a pretty cool reunion with Mike where they hug out and everything. It's like, yeah, that's pretty cool. She has cool little moments with like all of them hugging them, saying she missed them. Max tries to introduce herself and she just brushes her off and goes and hugs Mrs. Byers. She's like, where is he? To see Will. And of course they kind of go in and we see the message, you close the gate. She's like, yeah, I can close the gate. So they all kind of figure out what to do. They're like, all right, we gotta time the gate closing as well as we can. And it's like, we gotta try and burn out the infection with Will because he doesn't like heat. It's like, that kind of should work. So of course they split up. They have Steve with Max, Lucas, Dustin, and Mike just like kind of left at the house. And of course Hopper and 11 go off to go to the lab and shut the gate. And of course Joyce, Jonathan, and Nancy go off to burn the infection at the cabin that 11's been staying at. And this is pretty interesting what was going on, because we see Hopper kind of having his moment with 11, because she kind of tells about like going to see her mother and all that stuff, and they have a moment where like Hopper's explaining about how he lost a daughter, how he thinks he's a black hole and everything, and that was a pretty cool moment. As well as when they get up there, and 11 has the flashback of all the stuff at the lab and still goes into like fight because we had gotten from 8, she was trying to pretty much get her to keep doing what she was doing, talking about like a wound and a rotting stuff coming from it, and that's kind of like the portal and all the stuff that she has gotten from the abuse of the lab place. She's using that anger to move a train car as like 8 had trained her. So that was pretty cool going in there. Then we see the moment where they're like pretty much roasting Will to get the shadow monster out of him, and of course Jonathan's freaking out, but Joyce is on the warpath like, I'm gonna kill this motherfucking thing. And of course Will kind of like gets his arm out and is like strangling her, but they're able to get a hot poker and like burn him, and that kind of like gets it out of him. It's like, alright, cool. Will's good. While that's going on, Billy is able to make it to the house and is pretty much trying to get Max to come back with him, and starts pretty much doing shit with Lucas, and of course this makes Steve start to fight him, but then Billy just starts beating the shit out of him, and Max is like, this is enough, sedates his ass, and he's still coherent, and she like grabs this bat that Steve had, and like, stop this shit, I'm not gonna do it again, as she like bangs it near his dick. He's like, okay. So, of course, the group there had the idea of pretty much setting off a fire within the underground tunnels to draw the Demodogs away and give 11 and Hopper a kind of clear way to get to the gate. And Steve didn't want to do that. His job was to protect them. So, of course, Steve's kind of knocked out, and they start driving there, and he's like, shit, damn it, fine, we'll do this. So, of course, they're getting through the tunnels and all that, and they eventually set off a fire to, like, get the Demodogs. Had some crazy kind of, like, things going on as they kind of, like, move out from the building, and they get cornered by Dart. And here's where it comes in. He gives Dart some Milky Ways, not Milky Ways, Musketeers, and they're able to get past them. And they're trudging up to kind of, like, get up the hole that they had made, and they hear, like, the Demodogs coming, and, like, Steve and Dustin were in there, and it's like, shit, and the dogs just run past, and it's like, holy fuck. That's because they'd sensed the danger, because 11 and Hopper were able to get to the gate. They were also found Owens there as well, and tied off his leg. He wasn't as badly, he was wounded, but not too badly. And we really see some good stuff going on with 11 using the anger to close the gate, and she's like working really hard, and of course the shadow monster has been like thrown out of Will at this point. They've been told that they can do it, and we see Hopper like shooting at the Demodogs to keep them off the shadow monsters, trying to infect 11 at this point. She's using all of her anger and her rage, and she's able to keep closing the gate while also rebuffing the shadow monster's thing. That's a big use of power. I really like how they have scaled her power in this. Like, granted, she's a powerful telekinetic, but they did a good job of like making it ramp up to this level instead of just like out of nowhere she got a power level spike like Goku. You know what I mean? Though, granted, the plot demands it sometimes within that, but this, we build up to it. We see her bleeding from both nostrils, from the ears, her eyes starting to get blood within them as well. And she's able to close the gate, and it's really cool. It's like, holy shit, she's able to close off that part of her life, of the lab and all that. Damn, that's pretty cool. So, then we kind of get to the end, and we see that Hopper is talking with Owens. He is able to get a new birth certificate for 11, calling her Jane Hopper, pretty much having her be adopted by Jim, which was pretty cool. And he's like, well, I've let it die down for a year. How about one night? And then we see all the guys going to this snowball dance. And it was kind of cool. We see Steve being kind of like a big brother to Dustin, talking to him about like the whole Farrah Fawcett spray that he uses for his hair. Seeing Dustin do a hair kind of like that is kind of cool. So they kind of get in. We see Jonathan's the one taking pictures for everything. Nancy's the one laying in the punch bowl and all that. We see all the guys kind of like dealing with stuff. Lucas asking Max to dance. And since they pretty much come together and they go off, this one girl comes up and asks Zombie Boy to dance. He goes off. And then, of course, we see Eleven come in. And the cool thing that I saw was that she was wearing a hair clip that belonged to Hopper's daughter, Sarah. And her and Mike go off and dance. And then Dustin, of course, is going around trying to ask some girls to dance, but they kind of turn him down, so he kind of goes off and kind of like cries a little bit. And, of course, Nancy's like kind of feeling for him and decides to dance with him. And she's just like, all right, out of all of Mike's friends, you're my favorite, and don't worry, girls are stupid at this age. And it was like really kind of cool for Nancy to do that. Because we'd seen her kind of growth throughout this, dealing with stuff with Steve, dealing with her feelings with Jonathan, because they had a cool kind of thing with the conspiracy guy pretty much calling bullshit on them not being together, and them doing, as they were staying over there, kind of cementing their relationship and kind of like kissing and going in the bedroom and that being that. So it's like, okay, she was kind of cool for doing that for Dustin, seeing everybody kind of working out. We see Max and Lucas kiss, and we see Eleven and Mike kiss, which was pretty cool. I'm like, yes! Cool. And I was like, alright. And everything's kind of wrapped up. All the story arcs, at least at this moment. And then we get a cool kind of tease where we flip to the upside down and we see the shadow monster over the school. So it's like, okay, cool. So anything kind of wrapped up, all the kind of stuff with like Will kind of getting dealt with that. 11 dealing with like her powers and dealing with what kind of person she wants to be. And all the rest of the guys kind of like going through their growing pains of getting older and going through school and all that was just really well done and just kind of nice and wrapped up. I kind of like it when, even if it's, I don't need complete closure. It doesn't have to end like, and this was how it ended. I just like how all the storylines were just wrapped up in a good way while they yet tease stuff for the next season. And it's like, alright, cool. And there were just a lot of cool kind of things that were going on, like the shadow monster being like, from what I was seeing, Nyarlathotep, and just kind of like seeing stuff online, just being like this Lovecraftian kind of crazy thing that you can't really comprehend or kill. It was kind of like beyond our comprehension, even though they were like calling it a virus. It's like, yeah, but it's kind of a little bit more than that because of what it was doing with the Will and what it could potentially do in the future. So I'm intrigued to see how they continue with those kind of references. And I'm glad that it wasn't done as like a cliffhanger. I like teases more than cliffhanger because, like, come on. A tease is more like, here's some things that could come or could be important. And it was just really kind of interesting how they kind of like did all these kind of references, like the whole thing with Winston and how Lucas made the Judgment Day kind of stuff, even though he didn't want to be Winston. Him doing a Winston reference at that moment when they were talking about the Demogorgon dogs coming at him was just kind of funny. And of course, the whole Luke Skywalker kind of Empire Strikes Back kind of feel with 11 training a little bit with 8 and having the vision and having to go save her friends. We see Hopper kind of grabbing his hat Indiana Jones style when he's like getting rescued from the tunnels. It was just, I really like how they merged the 80s stuff and did it in a good way. Not like an over the head kind of like, oh, this is 80s, ha 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 kind of thing. It's just like, alright, here we go. Here's Reagan stuff. Here's this old school kind of candy bar wrappers and everything. This old kind of tech, basic and all that. It was really well done. And it was really just went in with like how it was paced, how it didn't feel too fast or too slow. Now granted, of course, you can watch everything at once, so it kind of could skew it if you're having to watch it like 1 and then wait a week, 2, wait a week kind of thing like regular television. And the execution of just like how these things happened and how they were kind of brought together, like having an 11-centric episode with her dealing with 8 and then bringing it back, did a good job of like giving us a little break of like, oh god, because it was like action, 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 and then we kind of have 11 action, but we're not just continually going through with the alien stuff at this moment. It's like, alright, cool. So, I would highly recommend if you're into Stranger Things Season 1, and just even if you're not, to like check it out because of how well done they like go into their characters and just really you get payoffs from what you see and what you like invest within this show of like these characters at least having something happen within their arcs, even if it might not be something that you like or whatnot. It's like, okay, cool. There was character development. They chose something and they kind of dealt with the consequences of their actions. So I would really recommend watching this, and I can't wait till they do season 3. So those are my opinions on the season. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.